Welcome to Prophecy and Forensics, true stories with Rev Kimmy and Dr. G, a reality series that takes listeners on a journey through the intersection of faith and real-world challenges. Today's episode is an update on the missing person case and homicide of Elijah Vu. And now, your hosts, Rev Kimmy and Dr. G.
Well, greetings to all our listeners out there. This is Dr. G.
And this is Rev Kimmy. Guys, now, guess what? I'm finally going to be able to divulge. I can finally talk and tell you guys exactly everything that I tipped off to law enforcement, to the police chief, on Elijah Vu's case. Now that I didn't want to get in the way of law enforcement and to divulge information too much, I needed to sit on some of my tips. But we're going to share that information on this episode.
Right. And for first-time listeners, very quickly, I'm Dr. G. I'm a forensic victimologist, and I am a criminal justice professor. So, as nature for the beast here, I have to share some information with you, some statistics. According to the United States Bureau of Justice Statistics, 23% of children under the age of 13 who are murder victims are killed by family members. And this is yet another one of those cases. Sadly, so many of the cases we've done, Kimmy, are like this, aren't they?
Yeah, it's really sad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just horrid. The little West Boys and Harmony Montgomery, gosh. Mm-hmm. Anyway, just a quick review. Elijah Vu, a little 3-year-old boy, about 3 foot tall, about 50 pounds. I mean, just helpless, harmless little thing, little cutie. Lived in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. That's a city in between Sheboygan and Green Bay, along the shore there with Lake Michigan over in Wisconsin. He went missing on February 20th, 2024. And there were some suspects, and the police were doing a really good search and investigation. And they built their case up. Finally, there was his blanket was found south of town, but that was a false lead, as a lot of these cases were.
That was a stage.
Yep, very much staged. In the opposite direction, then north of there, several miles, like
because
6
no
miles.
baby is going to be carrying it. Well, what did we say on the first episode?
Oh, yeah.
7 miles or something, or whatever it was. No,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
They're not even going to carry it a mile.
Yeah, it was like
or even half a mile.
over 4 miles as the crow flies. But you
Yeah.
go by road, you had to go south.
It's
cross
obvious.
a bridge. And
Yeah,
all kinds of
if
stuff.
you really listen to this to the scene and where the baby's found, Elijah's found, it really screams staged.
Yep. So finally, on September 7th, so that's several months later, some hunters are out checking their land, getting ready for deer season. That Minnesota, that opens in November. I'm not quite sure about that area of Wisconsin, but they're out there checking their land. It's by a quarry north of Camp Manitou, which is a Girl Scout camp. And they come across skeletal remains, so they notified law enforcement. They went out and picked it up and checked the DNA on it, and sadly, at least now he can be put to rest. But it turned out it was poor little Elijah. So, here's where we're at, folks. Finally, on September 7th, now we have a body. And recently, law enforcement, they arrested the mother and the boyfriend, and they've been taken to court and charged. And the mother has been charged. Katrina Bauer, with chronic neglect of a child as well as obstructing an officer. Her boyfriend, and he's the real culprit, Jesse Vang, is facing charges of physical abuse of a child, repeated acts towards causing death, hiding a corpse and obstructing an officer.
So excuse me,
Yeah.
Dr. G. For those who are learning, because we do have young people who listen,
Yep.
who may be learning about, true crime and stuff like that. What is, and of course I know the answer, but what is obstructing an officer? Does that mean that the mother, the biological mother, intentionally lied to the police officer investigating the case of her son?
It could be many things. It could be withholding requested evidence. In some cases, it could be lying orally, verbally to him. It could be providing false information intentionally, like that blanket being 7 miles south of where the body was discovered. That could be obstruction of the crime, of the investigation.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, it's
I think that's good, because we also like to teach as we go along. I was also a teacher of law, civil law.
Right.
And I'm a litigation and trial paralegal, for those who don't know. I've been 30 years working at the top law firms of our country. O.J. Simpson attorney, Robert Shapiro. I've been with his firm several times and worked with Ken Starr, who handled Monica Lewinsky case, and over at the top law firms of our country, and representing celebrities, in which I still do. Represent celebrities. This is what I do for a living to earn money. I do my Christian ministry and our podcast we do for free, so that we can minister to others and to help the missing, or those who it turns out the missing person was killed. So we like to help victims.
We're going to dive into this
for free.
Fortunately, they couldn't run. They were arrested earlier on charges of child neglect, so they've been sitting there waiting, and now they finally are charged, and they're going to go to trial for murdering this poor little baby. But back to why we're doing this update. He went missing in February, and according to my records, he went missing on February 20th, and on March 19th, 2024, you sent an email with your prophetic information to law enforcement. And in our previous podcast on Elijah's case, we couldn't disclose names or specifics because
I couldn't share more information of my tip, because I could possibly spoil law enforcement's case.
Yeah, there were
because
no
they didn't
charges
come
yet.
out with further charges yet. So, here we are trying to help law enforcement, or by giving tips, or in the alternative, trying to help the victim. And it's not going to help law enforcement or the victim if we come out proceeding further charges and for them to get into a position to where we can share the information and not spoil their criminal case.
Okay.
So that's why we sat on this latter information that I'm going to share. Do you want me to do that now, Dr.
Yeah,
G?
jump into it.
Okay.
What did you tell them about who done it?
I'm
what
going to read the
happened
whole
online?
thing, because some of these things we discussed in the first episode, but this way nobody has to jump around who didn't hear the first one. They can just listen to this one.
Right.
So I'll reiterate some of that information.
All right. Take it away.
Yeah, and well, like I said, two things about the case is quite obvious. The distance of the blanket that it was found. I knew that was that's a red herring. Throw off investigators. That no child's going to carry it that far. Right? It's staged. As well as, conveniently, his body is found in a secluded, very heavy trees area. And that's where he runs away to and collapses and dies naturally. Is that what we're supposed to believe? So I think that's really obvious that is not the scenario. And that too is staged. The body is staged there so that it's not found. It's obvious. It's an obvious thing, right? Yeah. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and read verbatim my email. I cannot disclose a lot of this. I give my background on myself. I give a a commander of a detectives division who was, at the time, he was my reference for law enforcement. He's not anymore because he was promoted to chief of all detectives at this major Los Angeles law enforcement agency. So he can't do it anymore, but he did it for years. God bless him. I appreciate it very much. And so I wrote an email Tuesday, March 19, 2024 at 7:40 p.m., that's Central Time, to trpolice at tworivers.org and to the police chief, Benjamin Maynard, at benmei at two-rivers.org. And I wrote, Police Chief Benjamin, Dear Police Chief, first I have to say that I can't read this part. I almost disclosed my confidential reference. I need more coffee. That's only for the police to know, not the public. Yeah. I kept it confidential from the public for years, guys. Now I almost spilled the beans. Okay. I wrote a subheading, What Happened to Elijah Vu? Prophetic Analysis. Now, I am a Christian ordained reverend, okay? This is ministry gifts. I did ministry in hospitals for 20 years. ICU, ER, just people in convalescent and hospice. And I have gifts to help people. And so I'm going to be given through the prophetic gift insight from the Lord so that I can help the missing person or the person in the hospital, right? So it just so happens that those gifts work fine on missing person cases. So I looked at a picture of Elijah Vu, back in March. He was missing, almost a month. I look at the picture and I automatically knew. The Lord showed me, gave me the insight of what happened to him. And so I wrote this email to the police chief. I'm very sorry to be the one to tell you that Elijah Vu is not alive. I am 100% certain of this, unfortunately. He was murdered by the man, Jesse Vang, and he disposed of his remains. You know what God just showed me? Is that his dead body was placed in a black item, it was an item, black item, something. And I was thinking maybe a trash bag, but it turns out to be the black suitcase. Yep. I believe that he moved him in, which you guys probably may have heard about. And he donated that black suitcase to a charity that the police found and obtained it and ran DNA, and his DNA is inside of that black. So I was right about the black item that he was transported in, then placed, I said, at a trash bin or at a nearby landfill. You may want to dig in the other nearest landfills. Maybe he was attempting to outsmart the investigators by going outside his immediate area. I am 100% positive of this, that he went outside the immediate area. Now, we know where he was found. He's found right next to a place that looks like a landfill, right? There's tractors running in an area that looks like a landfill, but it is what is the place?
It's a gravel pit, and it's not like you don't see exactly perfect visions of
like watching TV or in person. No, it's impressions.
A suitcase and a football field, and he's on the 30-yard line.
I don't see. I don't see things like
you saw a big
like
massive
TV
area that was disturbed earth.
Well, I was seeing tractors and stuff like that. Yeah. Like it looks like a landfill because I'm from California. That's what landfills look like. Yeah. They're moving dirt with the tractors, etc. I'm not used to this area here in Minnesota. So, So, and with my gift, it says 1 Corinthians 13:9, For now we know in part and we prophesy in part. And so I am only seeing things what the Lord wants me to know. I don't know and see everything. I'm only seeing things in part, and I know in part. So I'm being shown, the Lord showed me a black item that his body was placed in. Well, that's accurate, but it's not a trash bag. It was the black suitcase. Okay? And they know that for sure. They obtained it, and his DNA is inside of it.
Right.
So, let's see, where did I pick up? He was murdered inside Vang's apartment. Then I talk about, have you taken a cadaver dog inside the apartment to hit, check inside the apartment whether or not, he was murdered, get the evidence from the cadaver dog. And then I said, I felt that Vang had killed him with his own hands. And I mentioned that in here. And we find out from the medical examiner that he was killed by the hands of Vang. Okay? So let's see. Let me read. I'm just talking about that it's a stage item about the blanket to throw him off, that it's not a real scenario. And that's everything, and that's everything that did occur and came to pass, including that Vang is the one who did it and in his apartment and transported him in a black item, and he was in or near a landfill, but it looks like a landfill because I see in part and know in part, and it really is a what are they doing there?
Gravel pit.
Gravel pit. Okay. So they don't have that in California and LA.
Maybe a couple bulldozers, some big 5-ton dump trucks, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, sometimes, it's not 100%, but it's very, very close, because when I see things, I need to interpret them. Okay? I'm seeing a black item. He's put in a black item, try to get a feel of what that is, because I get impressions. It's not like watching TV. I have a knowing, an impression. So it takes a lot of skill set. I've been doing this since 1997, and it's the cops who got me started doing this. Kristen Smart in San Luis Obispo, her case, her initial investigators are the ones who started me doing this. And known medium, James Van Prague, because her detectives, Kristen Smart's detectives, contacted James Van Prague and wanted him in 1997 to work the case. And I'm at his house, and, he knows of my gifts, and he said, no, I can't help you, but I recommend Kim do it. So I was sent in 1997 and worked the case up there in San Luis Obispo, and I pinned at that time, you guys need to go to Kristen Smart's case. I worked it in 1997, as well as returned in January 2021. You need to find Kristen Smart's episode. So why I'm mentioning it is that, for instance, not seeing, I get a feeling. I said that I told the detective in 2021 that in an email that everyone could find on my Facebook, a pinned docuseries. You could find those originals, emails. And I had said that Kristen was buried under Ruben Flores' Arroyo Grande house. I said this in January 2021, and then he said that he was going to hit the house, but not now. Well, he did in March 2021. They did hit it, and that's when they found that I was right. She was buried under Ruben Flores' Arroyo Grande house under the deck. But I had said that she was moved, and they also found the evidence she was moved. It's all in writing. Everyone could find it on my Facebook. Found as Kimmy, K-Y-M-M-I, Bloomberg, B-L-O-O-M-B-E-R-G. There's a pinned docuseries. Go look at the Kristen Smart. Look in the comments. You're going to find, even when Detective Cole called me, you could find that call log evidence is there as well. When he called, I think January 21st, 2021. I'm not quite sure the date. But it's there.
Yep. So, in summary...
Oh, wait, I was going to say, my point is that with that I said she was buried there, I'm in a vision, right? Mm-hmm. The Lord is showing me impression of this Reuben Flores' house. But the Lord, in my email, I said it's a light blue. But in actuality, it's a light gray. Now, when you're looking with these gifts, it's not like watching TV. It's an impression. So it's very hard. You have to interpret what you're seeing. And sometimes there's a little tweak to it. It's not 100% because you're not looking like at a TV show.
Right.
Clear like that. So just as when he's carrying out Elijah Vu's body in a black item, why I would think a trash bag, when in actuality it's a a black suitcase.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yep. So in summary, less than a month, actually, by one day from when Elijah went missing, you informed Police Chief Minert that the name of the individual who caused harm to Elijah, where he did it, how he transported or in what he transported the body, the black object,
and
the
where
suitcase,
he'd be found,
and that the body would be found and where it would be found, a description of the area. And like I said
also
before,
said that it wasn't the landfill where they searched. I said go out further to a different one,
right,
outside of the immediate area, and that's where he was found.
Outside of town, yep. So that's pretty good. Now, at this point now, since our last previous podcast on Elijah, we have affirmation of all this that you have shared with law enforcement. So
yeah, and then
pretty good hit.
Yeah, and people, I want you to know that I never follow cases after I work them, even though I'm a trial specialist. That's what I do for a living, but I'm in civil law, and I can't. This is so hard to see and know that these kids are being murdered or raped or whatever it is I have to describe to law enforcement. But I care enough about the victim to describe it, just watch it with the impressions, the vision, whatever it is that the Lord is showing me, so that I can then tip off the law enforcement, let them know. And then I need to let it go and move on. But I do follow the case when it manifests. Elijah was found, where, etc. I get all my affirmations 100% accurate, right? And then I move on. I'm not following this case. I can't, because I can't emotionally handle it. It's not good for me. I don't want to hear about more than I've already, I help the missing person and he's found, right? So I move on. Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, we'll wrap it up there then. Thank you for listening.
I want to say that if anybody has a case you guys want me to look at, a missing person case, a cold case, whether you are an investigator or not, I've worked with active cops, detectives, police chiefs, sheriffs, all over the country. I have met them in person. So if you're a cop and you want to do this, you can contact me. And you would do that by an email, revkymmi drg@gmail.com. Mm-hmm. So nothing's wrong with helping cops. I mean, I help some top cops over at our country's biggest law enforcement agency, right? At Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Some homicide detectives over there. And those are the top of the heap. So I have a good reputation. I do it for free. And I don't spoil cases.
And
I wait.
I can provide forensic analysis for law enforcement agencies. I've worked with Dr. Silhouette. So we can
and he has a TV show.
Offer our services both free to law enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so anybody who has a story you guys want to share, any kind of faith story, you can write us, share your story of miracles or things that you've seen the Lord do. And if anyone, of course, I'm an ordained reverend, guys. Of course, I'm going to want you guys all to know about Jesus and to have a personal relationship with him. God knows everything. When the parents or the boyfriend Vang, what they did, God watches, God knows everything. Or how could I know this information before the police know? Or before they divulge the information? Because God knows everything. And, if everyone can do what I do, just go into prayer. And now listen, you know what everyone does? They pray and they move on with their lives. They don't ever take time to listen. I listen and take time, be quiet and listen for the answer. That's all that I'm doing that's different from everyone else. And it's not crazy. It's not crazy to hear from God. I don't hear voices and I don't really see things. They're impressions. Impression on my heart, or on my mind. So it's the same as what you guys can do too. But you have to practice it. Practice your faith. But for those who don't know Jesus, you can come to know him. You just say, Lord Jesus, please come into my heart to be my Lord and Savior and forgive me all of my sins. And he will do that as long as you mean it and you know you're a sinner. We're all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. And we need Jesus to save us so that we can receive the gift that Jesus has for us. That when we die, we go to heaven for free because of what he did, not what we did. Mm-hmm. It's an exchange of life. He takes on our bad and we take on his good. And it's that simple. So, if you guys just did that prayer for the first time, I recommend that you go out, buy a Bible, Holy Bible, or in the alternative, you know what? You can just Google it and go to the book of John and start reading that and learn about Jesus. Learn about it. It's not a fable. It's true. It's a true story. And this is one unfortunate testimony of what the Lord has done, yet another case to try to assist on helping a missing person.
Yep.
And it's an unfortunate ending, but I'm sure that Elijah is with Jesus.
Okay. Let's wrap it up.
Yes,
there.
God bless you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you another episode.
Thank you.